Indiana Jones number 5. And honestly, if you're not excited about this movie, well then, you know what? You're probably one of my boys, because honestly, let's kill the crappy stand-up comedy intro music here. It's like the freaking Kill Tony band, for Christ's sake. If you're anything like me, you might not have thought this movie was even a movie. Is it technically a movie if it doesn't really have an ending without an intended second part? Because you can't make that argument for Empire, because there is an intended second half to that story. But Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is really something else. And let me just say, if you liked this movie, that's fine. That's cool. You're allowed to like whatever you want. I mean, there's plenty of music out there that I don't like at all. And most people agree is pretty damn good. So, your preferences, your tastes will not be judged here in this zone. They might be mocked and criticized and joked about the same way we can mock, criticize, joke about anything that gets said tonight on the stream. But at the end of the day, it's your opinion. You're allowed to have it. So try not to get too offended if I talk some shit and say some stuff that you don't necessarily agree with. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right? Just having a little open discourse. But this movie, man, is it worse than the Crystal Skull? I'd have to watch the Crystal Skull again. I'm not gonna lie there. It has been a little while since I have checked out that movie, and what I remember is it wasn't great. Now, the one thing I'll say is that absolutely uh, most Indiana Jones movies very much exist outside the realm of realism, outside the realm of like logic and stuff. You've got him in Crystal Skull. We all remember this, getting in the refrigerator to survive an atom bomb. So when this movie opens up with Indiana Jones in the past, it's a CGI'd, de-aged Harrison Ford, of course. Not looking too bad, if I do say so myself. You know, uh, Looking pretty bad, actually. Okay, here's the thing. Like, when he's not well lit, super great, unlike this actual shot that I'm showing you, it doesn't look too bad. It's certainly better than the Harrison Ford that you typically get. But here's the thing, man. Just like with all these like CGIified characters, even Sigourney Weaver in Avatar, as she was like avatared, but like supposed to be 12 or whatever as her character, it just looks weird when these old people in their 60s, God, maybe like upwards of 70s. How old is Harrison Ford? Harrison Ford age. Let's look this up, like, just to get this. 80. He's 80. So he's making this movie at like 79, 78. It took him a little while to make this movie, right? A couple of years. Yeah, man, he sounds 78. So it's always very jarring when they're using these old school images of them. For example, we've got old school Harrison Ford right here as our icon, just kind of classic Hollywood Harrison Ford, and compare that to the CGI that you have up there. There's just something a little too glossy about it. It's a little too fake. It's a little too, but they've got the crooked nose. It looks technically well enough. So when it's dark, oh, and by the way, please have a drink if you're fortunate enough to be in a situation where you can have one. So it's dark enough that in this beginning scene, you don't have a lot of distracting moments with this CGI face. But yeah, we start off. It's obviously 1946, the end of World War II. Maybe it's 1945. I'd have to get my timelines precisely right there. But pretty much the Germans are effed. Berlin is falling. Indiana Jones is trying to get some relics out of the hands of them, particularly the lance of Christ, which I guess is supposed to be the spear that stabbed Jesus on the cross. If you're down with all those stories and all that kind of stuff. So he's looking for it here in Germany. He gets captured. We have a pretty fun sequel. I'll say, I don't know. The intro was maybe my favorite part of the movie, for as like cheap and weird as it was with the CGI Harrison Ford. It's like the most purely entertaining part of the movie. He gets himself caught. They obviously are going to go execute him. He gets hung. A bomb drops through the ceiling, blows up the whole building, and because Harrison Ford's like hanging there, he survives it. And he's getting jerked around by the explosion. It's pretty crazy, but I can't hold it against this movie because all of Indiana Jones, from that rock to the atom bomb to this stupid crap with the noose, there's always an aspect of fanciful escapism, if you will. So Indiana Jones is there. He's there with like his British partner, that little creepy, barely human looking guy who is just in so many different movies. He's in so many different movies. He's a Nazi in Captain America. So not a Nazi in this movie. He's a British guy. He's helping Indiana Jones uncover these artifacts. They discover that the Lance of Christ is a fake. They've got to escape this train. They end up escaping it. They run into Mads Mikkelsen. I always like almost screw that dude's name up, man. Like Mads Mikkelsen. What kind of name is Matt? That's craziness. They run into Mads Mikkelsen. He's like a Nazi scientist researching Archimedes' dial, this magical device that can turn back time. And obviously, if you are a nation on the brink of getting completely effed in the butt by the entire world, like Nazi Germany was, you might want to turn back the clock and make some decisions a little bit differently. He's only got one half of it, though. No one knows where the second half of this dial is. But it's obviously very important because you can go back in time with it. So, you got your whole chase sequence, Nazis going after Harrison Ford and British guy in the past. That's a big thing. The whole movie, pretty much, if you just want to listen to this part and what's the movie about, I'll tell you right now. 4/5 of the movie is Harrison Ford and someone else go to a location and get chased by Nazis and attack there. And then the last fifth of the movie takes place in the past with the Dial of Destiny, and then you get your little storybook ending. That's it. Boom. Whole movie done. You don't have to listen to any more of this if you don't want to. There, you got it. You got the Dial of Destiny. You know what happens in it. But to give you a little bit more detail, so they go up against Mad Mikkelsen. Mad Mikkelsen. That should be who? Why? How come a white rapper hasn't tried to steal that name? Mad Mikkelsen. Come on, it's out there for you. That one's for free. Have another drink to that. He attacks Harrison Ford, this weird British guy I've had up on the side. I apologize. There should be a gore warning for that. Honestly, that dude is so ugly. They go up against him. They get the dial, their half of the dial back from him. I guess they steal it from him in the first. They steal it from him. He steals it back. Because they're trying to escape the train, and then they fight him and get it back. He gets hit in the face with like a pole while riding on a train. I know it's like the 40s, so I don't know how fast like a train in the 40s is going. Based on my Back to the Future knowledge, it was like hard for them to get up to 90. it's only 80, 60 years later. So let's say like if maybe this train's going like 60 or 80 itself. He gets hit full face in the face with a metal pole. And does not die from that. Harrison Ford, at one point, they're going under tunnels. He gets pushed up against the wall of the tunnel on this train, and his leather jacket is protecting him. Now, if that is not a strong statement for Disney being pro leather, I don't know what is, man. That is 100% as clear as day. So, again, though, we're not going to hold that against this movie because Indiana Jones movies are rife with ridiculous stuff. It's an adventure movie. relax and have some fun with it. I really wish I could have done that with. I genuinely wish I could have done that with this movie a little bit more than they actually allowed. So they end up escaping the train. The railroad gets bombed out. They jump off the train. Uh, British guy and Harrison Ford leave. They, just another successful adventure. And then we fast forward, not with the Dial of Destiny, but just with the normal timeline of things. And we find Harrison Ford old and in a state of, kind of just like general disrepair. He stinks. His son is dead. He enrolled in Vietnam out of spite, and his wife is grief stricken. They're estranged. Harrison Ford says they're divorced, and maybe that's just like Indiana Jones being kind of a curmudgeon and stuff here. But they're estranged. They're not actually divorced. So yeah, you got a little bit of that. Mischaracterization. Maybe it's Indy being just again down on the dumps. Maybe it's just bad writing. You decide. So it's Moon Day. That gives us a little place in time. 1969. I guess that's the day they're like celebrating the astronauts getting back from the moon. I don't know. If you were alive during Moon Day, please tell me. That would be great to know. But Harrison Ford finds himself, in again, an old state. He's unwanted. He's a professor at the same university. I guess he's been teaching at the whole time. I cannot remember the name of the place he's been teaching at. They mentioned he's been there for a while in the movie, so you could tell me if that's the place he's been at the whole time or if that's a new place. But they're honoring him. It's like his retirement day. He's teaching a class. It's Moon Day, so it's a little weird that they're having their class. Maybe he's just like the one dickhead teacher who's still holding class, even though it could be a day off. And in his class, that's when we're introduced to the great and fabulous Wombat, Phoebe Waller-Bridge. She is his goddaughter, the daughter of the hideous British guy, which is pretty good casting as far as just kind of generally speaking, having really. I'm just going to switch back and forth between these two to make this point to you. The beady eyes, their noses aren't the same. She has this very hooky nose, and this very like. You remember that guy from Lazy Town? The bat. I mean, rest in peace. That guy's not alive anymore, but she's got the same chin as that guy from Lazy Town. He's got this very weak and lame chin, very unlike Harrison Ford in this icon here. He's got this very weak chin. So she must have gotten all those dominant features from her mother. But Wombat is in Harrison Ford's class. He doesn't recognize her. She has the answers to all of his questions he's asking. And for me, it was okay. It establishes her as she's supposed to be established. This real go-getter archaeologist who's like really excited. She hasn't seen her godfather in a long time. She wants to reunite with him. Again, like I mentioned, they're kind of honoring Harrison Ford. They give him like this retirement gift. Phoebe Waller-Bridge follows him to a bar, and she starts discussing the Dial of Archimedes with Harrison Ford. She's like, "Hey, I've been doing some research. I looked up that train that you and my dad crashed on. He said you never had it, or you guys like lost it there, so we could go and find it." She knows that Harrison Ford has it. She's just trying to get him to like show it to her. So, he falls for it. He takes her to the little section of the school that he's been keeping it in. And they start talking about the Dial of Archimedes. Little do we know, though, she's being followed by Mads Mikkelsen and his like henchmen, man. So he's got like this little gang of of like German helpers. It's not these guys because this is in the past, but he's like the one guy's American, which is kind of confusing. But he's got these Germans. He's got this big like. Honestly, the guy looks like Rob Gronkowski, but Nazi style. But he's got his own little team of Nazis, and they are teamed up though with the CIA because he helped build a nuclear bomb, and so therefore the CIA is like willing for him to get his hands on a time machine device. And this again, this is where I know like it's Indiana Jones. I don't need to like be thinking about it too hard. But there needs to be something actually happening in this movie to the extent of like, we cannot just allow this to like exist in the world of like who gives a fuck, nothing really matters. Okay, so the US government's willing to give this Nazi a time machine device that they don't believe really works, even though they have things like the Ark of the Covenant. They know about other crazy ass things that Indiana Jones in the past has found. But they're willing to entertain this because they don't really believe in it. So all that's to say, this lady, the CIA agent, and the Nazis, they're all working together. So the CIA and the Nazis, as far as this movie is concerned, the same thing. They attack Harrison Ford, Phoebe Waller-Bridge. We kind of find out that she was aware of them, and she again was tricking Indy. She was trying to get her hands on this thing. She's kind of a scoundrel in this movie, and again, I kind of like that. So she's genuinely an archaeology enthusiast. It's okay, like cool. Her dad was. She's got this godfather, this legendary figure, Indiana Jones, who's very inspiring to her, and she has like a troubled past, so she's kind of become about it for the money and stuff. It's not the worst setup, man. Like I did not hate her character at the beginning of this movie one bit. It was all good. So she escapes. Harrison Ford kind of outwits the Nazis. There you go. First example of going to one location with Harrison Ford. Second, actually, example of going to one location with Harrison Ford in this movie and getting attacked with Nazis. So he sort of escapes the Nazis, gets out onto the roof, ends up running out into this parade. He's again trying to escape them. He gets kind of captured by them, and then they end up in the parade, and he starts chanting like we won't take it or something like that. And it starts like a little bit of like mosh pitting at the parade, and that's kind of how he gets away from his captors. Again, like just these little weird moments. But he steals a horse, he gets away from the Nazis, he gets on the train, and he goes off to his buddy Fez Cap guy from the previous movies. I don't remember his name. He's not in this movie for very long. He's kind of just like a regroup real quick for him while Indiana Jones gets ready to head out on a plane to like Tanzania, like something like that. Tanzania. That might be right. No, definitely not. It was not Tanzania. But I bet I could find it on here. Yeah, there you go. All right. He like heads over to Tangier, yeah, Tangier, which is like this like Muslim Northern Africa area. But that's where Phoebe Waller-Bridge has gone to sell this thing. So he heads over there by himself. Uh yeah, I'm not even gonna talk about that weird scene with him and that dude where it's like very like erotic for a moment. He's like, Indy, I want to come with you. I want to he says, I want to come with you, Indy. That pretty much speaks for itself. Am I right? So in Tanzania, Indiana Jones ends up finding Phoebe Waller-Bridge, kind of interrupts this little auction she's doing for the device. We are introduced to my personal favorite character in this whole movie. Uh, you'll see in just one. I had him up a second ago. Unibrow Mustache Kid. Unibrow Mustache Kid is the new short round. You can't see it all that great in this image, but he's got this really gross unibrow right here in the middle and this really weird looking mustache. No offense if you have a unibrow, uh, rock it. If it looks really good for you, make it work. This kid is not making it work. It's horrendous. It's very upsetting. But you're gonna have to look at it the whole movie. So he's like her little short round. he's like taking lessons to fly planes from some guy, but like he's just learning on like cardboard. Like he's never actually flown a plane. It's just like kind of thrown in there. I'll give them this, man. They make every attempt they can to make this seem like it's a real movie and not just like a series of what could we at least get Harrison Ford to agree to do with us. So Phoebe Waller-Bridge is selling this thing off, and surprise, surprise, the Nazis show back up. Matt Nicholson and his boys, local rapper, hottest dude around. They bust up the auction. They steal the dial, and chaos ensues. Well, they chase Indy, unibrow mustache kid, and Wombat here, and they end up eventually getting the dial. So, no, wait, sorry. They don't get the dial. Indy and them get away with it. They get away from the Nazis. Oh, I almost forgot about this. This is the first moment I started to not like Wombat so much. So, as we're escaping from the Nazis who have followed Harrison Ford and once again Phoebe Waller-Bridge and now her little unibrowed sidekick to the new location and chase them off, we are also met with some guy who Phoebe Waller-Bridge banged, and that's of the hanging, the explosion, the time travel. Probably the most unbelievable aspect of this movie is that all these guys want to bang Phoebe Waller-Bridge right off the bat. Now, I understand getting to know her. Look, I'm talking romance. I am a romantic guy. Getting to know her, getting to understand her personality a little bit. Really, not just being a man whore and jumping into bed, but getting to know this person. It's very much depicted like Phoebe Waller-Bridge is just irresistible, and every guy she comes across loves the look of this crimson chin here. So, uh, as they're trying to flee the auction from the Nazis, she runs into an ex. He wants to kill her. He's so mad. She really puts him down. Lots of fun stuff, and that's kind of where you get your first little sense of like this idea that people have been reporting on, like, oh, Phoebe Waller-Bridge is going to replace Indiana Jones in this movie and just upshow him. I will tell you, like, the good news is it doesn't exactly happen until the very end of this movie in one moment, a pretty important moment, but it is just one moment. It doesn't really happen in this movie, but you can kind of see how this movie could have gone that way. Maybe if they didn't just like structure it differently with like editing and stuff. I really don't know. I mean, everybody knows they've done like 6 different endings to this movie. We'll get to the ending. That is a real head scratcher, that ending. Not like in a, again, like a reasonable way, just in a what kind of a way. Uh, so yeah, we're escaping in Tanzania. We get away from the Nazis. We get away from Phoebe Waller-Bridge's ex. That's the first moment that I start to not like her as much, because there's just these snarky lines, and the way that she delivers them are not really all that much fun. They just kind of come across as like high and pretentious. And I guess where I'm getting at, and I'll drop it here, but I'm just going to point it out. Do you remember the really theatery girls you went to high school with? Because hopefully your college was big enough that you didn't have to know the theater kids if you didn't want to know. If the theater kids were your people, good for you. That's great. But if you didn't want to know them, you probably didn't have to. But in high school, everybody knew the theater kids. But at least at my high school, the theater kids partied. So we would be partying, but the theater kids party too. And in the quest of getting messed up, you'd find yourself partying with the theater kids, especially after one of their plays. They went pretty hard, but there was this high end of like theater girl who was all about theater and had this like way of talking. And Phoebe Waller-Bridge just reminds me of one of those types, you know? And I'm not talking like a down to earth, like cool chick who just does theater. She likes to do plays. Like theater is like her whole life. And I started to get that sense with this Tanzania scene. So anyway, Indiana Jones actually has a little moment. He fixes the engine of the car that's all blown out. He ends up convincing Unibrow and Phoebe Wombat Bridge to bring him along continuously because he knows a boat and a guy who can dive that will get them to the second half of the Dial of Destiny. We kind of find that out that the Dial of Destiny has a second half that is in the Mediterranean still, and where they found the first half was actually very close to the instructions to find the second half. They were using the first half, I think, to find the second half. And I'll admit that there's a lot that happened in this movie that I did not understand. And I was paying attention. I had a cup of coffee before this movie. I was like alert. I was like really on point. I went and peed one time during this movie, but it was that boat scene right at the beginning when Phoebe Waller-Bridge is doing the magic tricks with the card. So if I missed something important in those like 2 minutes that I was peeing, let me know. But it seemed like it was mostly going to be just kind of like a joke scene. And when I came back, they were waxing a little bit of philosophy about like Harrison Ford was like, no, life is about the connections or like the experience. And Phoebe Waller-Bridge is like, I want the money. And again, like I was a little surprised that they sold her as this very selfish character, who was very interested in the money, mostly interested in the money, very self-centered, very much going for it. And yeah, it was a little unexpected. You'd think that there'd be a little more virtue signaling with her, but they were working to make her flawed in at least like a respectable way, like it wasn't just kind of like, oh, she's stubborn in one scene, and there you go. There's the character development. Like, no, like she genuinely is a selfish person. She genuinely makes choices for like crappy monetary reasons, and her unlikableness makes me like her a little bit more in this movie. You don't get enough of it though, unfortunately, or portioned out enough. So I go to pee, come back. They're on this boat. They head over to the second directions for the second part of the Dial of Destiny. They end up diving down there. Phoebe Waller Bridge, once again, is, just drawing the eye of every guy. To be fair, this is a guy on a boat. Guys on boats, long times, first whiff, you'd be on it. Let's be real. Single guy, A-okay. Go for it, brother. Sailor, protect yourself. They died down. There's eels in the water. So I'll give the movie credit here. There's the quick gag about, oh, eels are kind of like snakes. And no, they're not like snakes. We all know he's afraid of snakes. He gets attacked by the eels. They find the instructions for the second part of the Dial of Destiny down under the water. There's a big eel attack. Phoebe Waller-Bridge helps him out of it. While they're on the boat, once again, they get found by the Nazis. And then again, like a moment in the movie I didn't understand, like the one dude who's like looking out for them, like he was like up on the ledge right above the deeper part of the ocean that they dove down to go scuba diving and find these instructions in the boat. He gets like shot, but I don't understand how you see like the bullet whizzing down like spiral style under the water. And I guess it like hits the guy and kills him. But like I didn't understand that at all. And like maybe they like cut his maybe they actually like cut his breathing tube, and that's what I was watching was his breathing tube spiraling around. I'm not gonna watch this movie ever again. So please let me know. Like, was the breathing tube shot or was it cut? I really don't know. But Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Indiana Jones, they end up coming back up to the surface along with their diving guy and Unibrow Kid. The Nazis have found them once again. Phoebe Waller-Bridge kind of plays like she's willing to betray the Dial of Destiny and Indiana Jones for a big payment. The Nazis end up giving her diamonds, and she translates it for them in the code that Archimedes has written this little instructional in. But she translates it literally, and you have to be able to think figuratively, I guess, to be able to uncover it. So while she's doing all this, Indiana Jones is sitting there kind of sulking, but she's like, "Oh, like I thought you were smarter than that." And she shows him like, "I stole some dynamite from earlier." She gets a cigarette from the one guy because, to be fair, this was also a decent scene. And again, I'm kind of insulting Phoebe Waller-Bridge's looks and stuff here, but she's walking around. She's doing a good job of doing like the girl thing of like she's just talking and like she's looking all the guys in the eyes and getting kind of close to them and talking. And it's a pretty good example of femininity and how it can totally dominate the fuck out of masculinity as far as getting guys to pant like dogs and kind of be like, oh, like, oh, you're getting close to me. Definitely, especially incel Nazis, right? Am I right? So she bums a cigarette from a guy, gets it lit, puts the dynamite behind her back. Indy helps her light it. They get off the boat. Big explosion. Mads Mikkelsen and his boys are left on the boat while Indy, Phoebe Waller Bridge, and new unibrow short round end up getting away. They end up going to I don't even know, like Sicily or some shit like that. Like they go to Italy from Greece. They were in Greece looking at that shipwreck. They go to Italy to find the ear of Dionysus and get the second half of the Dial of Destiny. Phoebe Waller Bridge, Short Round, Indiana Jones are all in like Sicily, kind of like I guess just sort of finding their way, figuring their stuff out. Surprise, surprise, the Nazis find them and they capture Unibrow Short Round. So once again, the Nazis have found a member of the team. They've captured them this time. Indiana Jones and Phoebe Waller-Bridge go to Dionysus' ear. Indiana Jones is like, we'll find the kid eventually. It's almost like he doesn't really care, but it's kind of just one of those things that's dropped in the movie. Like, why even bringing it up? Like, even. And that's another thing. Okay, so there's something worth mentioning in this movie that there's a few moments that are really stupid, and there's like lines that don't need to be said. Puff, puff away if you can. It's medical here in PA, so this is fine. It's not even a problem. Uh, Number one, on the boat, Phoebe Waller Bridge, waxing philosophy with Harrison Ford. And I did get back from peeing at this time. And again, they're kind of like, oh, it's about connections, it's about money. And she's like, well, if you weren't going to sell the Dial of Destiny for money like I want to, what would you even use it for? And Harrison Ford says, I go back in time. I tell my son not to enlist in the war because I tell him he's going to die and it's going to cause me and his mom to become totally estranged. But very reasonable. There's a lot of us who would change like a little thing in our lives to improve the situation of the individuals around us. I agree with that. Phoebe Waller Bridge, as Harrison Ford's walking away, goes, "You're still wearing your wedding ring." No, because I think he says me and his mom get divorced because of it. You're still wearing your wedding ring. Well, you could be divorced and still wearing your wedding ring. Number two, you don't need to say you're still wearing your wedding ring. I know you're trying to convey that to the audience, but like for example, I went to see Asteroid City with my wife this last weekend. Great movie. Totally recommend it. Go see it. It's enjoyable. It's interesting. There's a moment where they're talking about including a line where like a character does something and they want to explain a little bit about the character's motivations, and Edward Norton, the person who, spoiler alert, writes Asteroid City, the author of it, says to himself, that's a really good line, we should include it explaining the situation. But then again, I suppose it's not necessary. And isn't that the key, people? It's not necessary. You don't need Phoebe Wombat Bridge to yell out, "Hey, you're still wearing your wedding ring." Like, okay. Again, I guess they're trying to kind of like give you the threads that they're not really separated so they can shoehorn this ending in. We'll get to that. So anyway, little new unibrow short round here. He gets himself kidnapped by the bad guys, the Nazis, once again, while Phoebe Waller-Bridge and old Harrison Ford head off to Dionysus' ear to go and find the last part of Archimedes. They do find that last part of Archimedes' dial. They're able to connect them. Little short guy ends up, getting dragged into the cave by the bad guys and then escaping from them. And then after he escapes, he gets caught by them again. This is woohoo line in this movie number 2. The second line is this kid escapes from the bad guys, gets caught by the bad guys again, and then they handcuff him to the biggest bad guy so he won't escape again. And the kid goes, "You don't have to do that. I promise I won't try to escape." What the actual fuck? You just tried to escape. Why would they ever believe that? Even if you're being super desperate. Very dumb scene. And an even dumber moment for the entire movie. Anyway, though, that kid escapes. Unibrow boy. He jumps in the water with the big guy. He gets like this bridge to topple over. They're under the water. He gets through this little hole in this gate in the tunnel under the water. He handcuffs the big guy, even though he didn't even need a handcuff. This was crazy. So there's this gate in the water. It's got a hole in it. The kid can slip through and he's handcuffed to this guy. He steals the key out of his pocket before they fall in the water. That's important to mention. And under the water, he unhandcuffs himself. Then he handcuffs the big guy to the gate. That was dumb as hell because he just didn't need to do it. He didn't need to do it. The big guy can't get through the hole. And I guess maybe he was afraid that he'd like get back up to the surface the other way. But the whole reason they got pulled towards this gate is because like the current of the water is like pulling you that way. So I don't even think a dude that big could have struggled against it in that way. So that's a dumb moment, not a dumb line. Short round with the unibrow escapes, meets back up with Indiana Jones and Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who get attacked once again. This is the 4th or 5th time this happened in this movie. Getting found by Mad Mikkelsen and the Nazis. And once again, if it's totally cool where you are, then go ahead, join me. It's totally fine. We're using it for medical reasons. Oh, also, by the way, like on the way over to like Europe or whatever, they shot this chick, the CIA people that they're working with. So the Nazis are like all on their own. The U.S. government like wasn't gonna honor the deal or whatever after they like initially let it go, so that was like where that all fell apart. Anyway, where were we? All right, yes, we were right where they're in the cave. They get the dial of destiny stolen by the Nazis. They're able to unite it. Short round and them end up like kind of spying on the Nazis. They end up like following them out. The Nazis track down the spot in time that they want to enter, break into some air base, put on their Nazi uniforms, and get ready to go back to 1939. So at this point, we've covered like 4/5 of the movie. That's 4/5 of the movie going from one place. Nazis show up, attack them. They go to another place. Boom, bada bing, bada boom. That's that. Then they get in the planes. Short round here gets in his own plane, starts like following Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who gets on a motorcycle. Harrison Ford gets shot in the cave. Sorry, I forgot to tell you about that. As Short Round and Phoebe Waller-Bridge are escaping, Harrison Ford's like holding off the Nazis. He gets shot in the shoulder. They take them with him. They're like, we want him to come with us. Like, I guess Mads Mikkelsen has like a vendetta against them. And let me do a little aside here and say Mads Mikkelsen is nice in this movie, man. Like, he's a very cartoonish, one-dimensional villain and who's very enjoyable in this movie. And like, I'm shitting on it, but there are some good things about this movie. Like, there's a couple good action sequences. I liked Phoebe Waller-Bridge for like the first 20 minutes. 30 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 minutes. like third of it until like they really start laying it on thick with some of the lines and just some of the like, oh, okay, like you don't need to tell me how awesome you are. How about you just be awesome? And then Mads Mikkelsen again, just pretty much killing it in the one dimensional bad guy role. So yeah, Indiana Jones gets shot. He gets taken by the bad guys. They're taking him in a plane to the new spot. As we're this is where the movie really goes off the rails for me. So okay, the movie really goes off the rails for me at this point. In the Dial of Destiny, you get to this point where they're going through the time warp, and Indiana Jones all of a sudden realizes, yo, Archimedes didn't know about continental drift. Nobody did. Okay, like without looking it up, I will not look it up, but I'm going to assume that means the fact that the continents drift as time goes on. So even in 2,000 years, they've changed position a little bit. He explains to the Nazis, if you go back through that portal, that's not the portal that you actually want. Like you think you've looked up the right destination to go back through, that the Archimedes will lead you through. And once again, that's another question I have for this movie. As ridiculous as Indiana Jones movies are, how the hell do the Nazis know like what time portal they think they should be aiming for to maybe get back to 1939, which as we find out, they don't get there. They go back through this time portal. Little new short round follows them through the time portal. There's this random French dude who's like in the plane, and like it's like, oh, okay, like he's here helping short round for comedic purposes or something. Indiana Jones movies popular in France. Is that why they just like were like, God damn it, we need a French character in this thing. Write him in. The plane scene. That'll be the funniest scene anyway. So they go back in time. It is not 1939. It is the Battle of Syracuse, this big Roman siege on, I guess we can assume, Greece, Italy, whatever, Archimedes' place. It must be Archimedes' place because they're talking about continental drift and all that stuff. The planes obviously get attacked by the Romans. Everybody thinks they're enemies. They don't understand what they are. While this is, again, the movie just goes insane in the last fit. And that's the thing, man. Like, this movie's decent in the first little part, and then pretty, in my opinion, this is why I didn't like it. Boring for 3/5 of it, and then the last fifth of it, confusing as fuck. Like, you will not know what the fuck is going on in this movie. It's batshit crazy. So you find yourself in this movie now at the end. Harrison Ford, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, she got onto the plane. I told you, she rode the motorcycle. She got onto the plane. I might not have told you that. She rode the motorcycle, got onto the plane, and she's attacking Nazis. She's with Harrison Ford. The plane is going down because the engine's fucked. It's getting hit with spears and arrows and stuff like that. These big ballistas. That's the word I'm looking for. You're getting hit with ballistas from the Romans. So big ass spears. They're like gutting Nazis and stuff. This one Nazi guy is just like very much like intent on pointing his machine gun out of the window and shooting as many Romans as possible. He's just crazy about it. He's the one like crazy American dude who's like been just nuts this whole movie. I don't know what his deal was at all. Like he was actually really too much. Anyway, Indiana Jones, Phoebe Waller-Bridge jump out of the plane with the parachute. That's the scene you've seen from the trailers with the like, oh, I'm here to rescue you, rescue me. And again, you could see that going a different way. Almost a little surprising that they have Indiana Jones being as heroic as he is in that moment. That's water. Make sure you're drinking water along with those beers or whatever other drink of choice you would like. As America, I encourage you to do as you please. Phoebe Waller-Bridge and Indiana Jones jump out of this plane. Archimedes sees the planes. He sees the people jumping out of them, and he ends up deciding to follow them with his two young Lovers. This is probably the most disturbing part of the movie. Maybe because it released in June, they felt there was an obligation. Two young lovers, ugh, very weird, very young boys with Archimedes. You know what they're there for. Besides shooting arrows, Archimedes is probably shooting some arrows into them. They end up following the pair shooting out Harrison Ford and Phoebe Wombat. I almost forgot what he calls her. Phoebe Wombat Bridge, and new short round with the unibrow and the weird little this weird little, you can see it even in this crappy granular picture, this weird little mustache that he has, and the French guy, and they all meet. And then after a Roman soldier tries to attack him, Archimedes' boyfriends kill that guy, and he's like, "Hey, like, where are you guys from?" And Indiana Jones is like, because he can talk his language. He's like, "We're from 2,000 years ago, man. Like in the future, man." And Archimedes is like, "That's amazing. Are you the ones who are gonna like help us like win this battle?" And people all at Bridge realizes like, "Oh, this dial's bullshit. It only leads to one place, this battle, and it'll always lead to this battle. They're just looking for help here." So Harrison Ford's like, "Okay, I'll stay behind. I want to help them. Maybe I'll die, but that's how I want to live my life." And Phoebe Waller-Bridge is like, "Yeah, but you'll screw up history. It's pretty dumb." Again, I like that part of her character. Like, why not? Are you kidding me? Please be reasonable. So she is like, "Archimedes, you can't let him stay. He belongs in his time. You belong in your time." She then proceeds to punch Harrison Ford out. It goes black, and he wakes up as an apartment like a week later. And then again, this is where at the end of this movie, I'm like, huh? What? Huh? It's like Tim Allen in that old show, if you remember it, Home Improvement. Huh? That's the end of this movie. Harrison Ford wakes up. He's in his apartment. His old buddy with the fez cap from the previous movies is there. He's like, "Hey, man, you overslept or something. How you doing?" He's like, "Yeah, they've been better." Phoebe Waller-Bridge is there. She's like smiling at him. And then his ex-wife comes in. And forgetting her name too, but you know what I'm talking about. His ex-wife comes in and she's like, and Phoebe Waller-Bridge is like, "Hey, everybody, let's get ice cream." And they all leave. And Harrison Ford's like, "I'm back." And she's like, "Yeah, I heard. But are you really back?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm back." And then they make up and they kiss. Uh, and we get a little shot of Phoebe Waller-Bridge and the kids and the fez cap guy going down the street to go get some ice cream. And then we zoom in on Indiana Jones's hat. He grabs it with a little black circle, like zeroing in on it, and that's the end of the movie. I kid you not. That's the end of the movie. So I'm sorry, but even if you like this movie, what you don't think the end was a little bit rushed or like shoehorned in there? It's a well-known fact that they did like 6 different endings of this movie. They tested them all. And I guess this was the one that like did the best. Indiana Jones not dying, getting his wife back, and people being like kind of satisfied. But like honestly, really, like what the actual hell? You blot out the scene where they get back to the future. You really put no significance behind Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character besides like, she was Indy's goddaughter and he wanted to help her out and their paths crossed. And it turns out she was actually kind of an adversary, but then they came together. And again, that part of the movie I actually like. right, and we're back. I'm sorry. I was grabbing another beer. I hit some button. I really, honestly don't know what just happened there. But thank you for sticking with that. We'll make sure we edit that out. Uh, yeah. So, look, what, what's the end of this movie, man? I'll be honest. I expected a little bit more like time traveling. Not that you need a lot of time travel shenanigans and stuff, but like, man, like just 10 minutes in the past, and then like, oh, turns out this stupid dial only goes to one fucking place, and it's pointless. We can't help these people win because we don't even want to, because we might not exist if they win this battle. What? Like, why would you want to help them? It just feels so pointless, man. And like, I'm not that I maybe I be that nice about movies, but I'm not nihilistic about them. Okay. And I don't want them to not have a purpose. And it very much felt like this movie had very little purpose. I think where I was I actually kind of liked the Phoebe Waller Bridge, as the estranged goddaughter. Indy hasn't seen her in a while. She comes back into his life. I liked the beginning of that relationship. It was when the really forced, again, like snarky lines, and I say snarky because that's how I would describe a lot of those drama girls from back in high school. Very snarky, and that's not like a knock on Phoebe Waller Bridge's femininity or anything. I'm just saying the snarkiness comes across as a little pretentious. It wasn't always there, so it does make we question the writing that led to her being snarky. Because I mean, let's be honest. If she comes across as okay in the first like third of the movie for me, and even the last even the last little third of it, but the middle part, there's literally just like a few real cringe scenes. The scene with the ex-boyfriend, uh like a little bit with her explaining and translating the tablet. That scene wasn't so bad, but just a little bit there. And then like when she first kind of betrayed Indiana Jones in Tanzania, and it was like she was just being so like arrogant and stuff. And again, it's like, okay, credit here, like they're not just painting her as like a dare I say it, Mary Sue. They were. But they were kind of going with the like classic Disney female protagonist route of yeah, I'm not that likable, but deal with it because I'm what you got, you know. And yeah, man, at the end of the day, that's Indiana Jones. Again, like quick summary: Indiana Jones spends 4/5 of the movie showing up in one location, having Nazis attack him and chase him off. Last fifth of the movie, they go back in time for like 15 minutes, get attacked by Romans, and then decide, no, we got to go right back where we came from. This is a huge mistake, which is probably anything is sort of refreshing in a time travel movie. The idea that we got to go back. This ain't right. And, I've made a huge mistake. And maybe I made a huge mistake paying to go see Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Because let's be honest, Harrison just ain't the same. This was the Harrison we got. We did not have old Hollywood Harrison when he wasn't being creepy eyed, CGI'd. You got no double Harrison. There's no old Harrison Ford and young Harrison Ford in this movie. And the other thing I'll say, there is no post-credit scenes. There's never been a post-credit scene in an Indiana Jones movie, so I'm kind of glad they stuck with it. Now, moving on to another old man here, we got Baby Billy, and once again, so glad to be talking about the Righteous Gemstones. Today, we are on episode number 3. Episode number 3 has this crazy ass name. For their nakedness is your own nakedness. And honestly, pretty great name for the episode in general. So we got an episode really focusing on the Montgomerys, the cousins that the Gemstones absolutely hate. Uh, what are they? Chuck and Carl, I think, are their names, if I'm starting to get those down correctly. And I had a few mistakes last week. Here we go. Chuck and Carl right here for you. I got Chuck on the left, Carl on the right. I obviously, ironically enough, you got Chuck as the older brother, Carl as the younger brother. Take a drink to that. And they are the Montgomerys, who recently head of the church Eli rescued from their crazy dad. Last week, I was a few drinks in, so I'll admit that I was mistakenly calling him uh, Judy Gemstone's brother. Obviously, that is not the case. That is not Judy Gemstone's brother. The reality is that that is Judy Gemstone's stepbrother. Judy Gemstone's brother is, of course, Billy Bob. And this was a Billy Bob episode, man. I was really pumped to see Billy Bob again. I personally am a really big fan of the episodes that incorporate him. Uh, Walton Goggins is one of my favorite actors as far as like when he shows up in something, man. And I've said it before, but Vice Principals is one of my all-time favorite shows. I got to do a whole series on that, like promoting that and getting people to watch that if they have not, because that is 2 seasons of just quality TV that just goes the whole way through. But here on Righteous Gemstones, episode 3, once again, for their nakedness is your own nakedness. We have ourselves the Gemstones having to socialize with their cousins, Carl and Chuck here. Of course, this is all on the behest of their mother, played by oh, what the hell is her name again? Actually, I have it right here. Kirsty, yeah. Oh no, Kristen Johnston. I always want to call her Kirstie Alley, which I like. She kind of looks the same, but definitely not the same person. So, yeah, man, we got ourselves Kristen Johnson as their mother. She shows up in the very beginning of the episode. The whole deal with Chuck and Carl, as we're kind of finding out, they got issues with their mother. They don't want to stay with her. We find out she's kind of staying in the church all by herself. Again, Eli's the one who sort of exacerbated the situation by not only checking up with the boys, but getting so into it with his brother in law while he was there. That not only did it kind of cause a stir, but when they got busted by the feds, his brother in law ended up blaming Chuck and Carl for the bus, saying that, because you're Montgomery's and you're related to the Gemstones through your mother to Eli, you must have turned in our militia. As a result, the two cousins find themselves staying at the Gemstone compound. And of course, the Gemstones, Kelvin, Jesse, and Trudy are all getting just a little bit sick of their cousins. So they go to meet their dad out by the. I love this set, is one of my favorite sets in this whole show. The Judy memorial that they have to her. It's genuinely really nice looking. And again, Judy Gemstone is my personal favorite character in this whole show, man. She is the shit. Judy Gemstone episodes are awesome. And I just genuinely love the actress who plays her, as well as, again, just like the way they DH Goodman in those episodes, really quality. And then the way that they present her. And I mean, of course, like she was cast being like the age that she actually is, knowing that they would be de-aging Goodman. So their dad, Eli, decides you have to do a cousins night. You have to go and hang out with Carl and Chuck, bond with them a little bit. They are obviously pissed about it. There's this really great scene in the episode. I'll just kind of like spoil the joke here real quick. So if you haven't seen it, just turn this off. Go away. Goodbye. Have a great night. Uh, the cousins are watching them in the window, and Trudy's like, "Look, they're watching us." And they like just duck down. She's like, "They're gonna pop up any second now." Of course, they pop up again, and she's like, "Look, there they are," and then they like hide again, and that's like where you have literally this scene where they're just like looking up and making that face. So yeah, I got to admit, like I genuinely enjoyed the overall vibe of this episode, which even though it has this crazy ass name, like all the Gemstone episodes are named after, I assume, Bible verses or it's like common sayings and like evangelicalism. For thy nakedness is your own nakedness. But we're gonna call this episode Cousins Night for the sake of it, because this episode was all about Cousins Night. In addition to just Cousins Night, we also have Trudy Gemstone dealing with her affair as it is. So Trudy's got her affair going on with the dude from Broad City who took the Shinzu up the butt, I believe. And obviously we've got BJ. BJ's the man. My wife has pointed out before, and she's absolutely right, man. This is 100%. I'll go to war against anyone on this. The dude who plays BJ could play the real life Fry in a Futurama thing. He is like, he could capture the Fry essence all the way down to even the look, honestly, in my opinion. So BJ is, working for the church, doing his thing. He's being very humble, but of course, Trudy has been cheating on him, making out and dry humping with this guy, and it's like really obvious. Obviously Jesse knows. He's like kind of like told his wife's picking up on it. She tries to give Trudy her the system, which of course she delivers to BJ, who is confused about it, ends up watching it. Being the innocent guy that he is, he's like, "Oh, it's just like the thing that Jesse and his wife are selling to get everyone on board with this thing. It's kind of silly though. You want to watch it with me and laugh?" Amber, Jesse and Amber. Sorry, respect Amber. I love Amber, man. She's also awesome. Uh, of course, Trudy is pissed, hands the box back like this to Amber. You get like this great scene where she's like marching up and like beads are spilling out and shit like that. She's like, "I don't need this." And then they have it out, and then she's like, "You're going to Cousins Night, right?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm going to Cousins Night." And then of course cut over to Kelvin and Keith, who are discussing Cousins Night. Keith's gonna make his sausage dip, and then we go over to Cousins Night. So that's kind of a little advancement on Kelvin and Keith's relationship. You have this little awkward guy on guy moment with them where they're talking about his sausage dip and how he should bring it to the party. And this is what this dude Keith is great for, is like he's just great with those lines where he's like, "I'll give you my sausage dip in a Tupperware container and I'll seal it so it'll stay warm for your whole family so they can enjoy the sausage dip together." He literally like says it just like that, I swear. Uh Hilarious. This guy's amazing. Like really. He's awesome. Take another drink. If you haven't been keeping up, keep on up. So you got Keith there, you've got Trudy there, you've got all the significant others pretty much. Adam Devine as Kelvin is like, you're my best bro, and we're gonna hang out. Baby Billy. I know I brought him up early. I didn't really exactly explain how he comes into the episode. So you've got all the stuff with the gemstones. Episode actually opens up with Baby Billy, and he is currently working at the resort. Doing his thing. He's dressing up like an oyster and singing Christian songs at that big old resort that the Gemstones have. He kind of has a life. He lives in a suite with his wife. Oh man, what is her name? She's great. Aunt Tiffany. Aunt Tiff. She's also one of my, honestly, the chicks in the show are really good. I was just sitting here shitting a little bit on Indiana Jones 5 and how Phoebe Waller-Bridge like isn't that likable. Like all the chicks in Righteous Gemstones are likable, and they're not necessarily good people or like completely likable people, but excuse me, you enjoy their characters when they are actually on screen. So Baby Billy is working at the resorts, but he's kind of sick of it, and he gets it as the idea in his head that he needs to do a Family Feud style Bible show, and it's called Baby Billy's Bible Bumpers, I think, or something along those lines. Whatever, we'll go with that for now. Baby Billy's Bible Bumpers. This image particularly really sums up the episode. Just absolutely phenomenal. I assume in the background here we have like all the churches of the gemstones wherever they're located, but Aunt Tiff here presenting with her shoulders shrugged, man. Like, and they do a really good job of like white trashing her up in this show, man. Because like really, like she's great, like she's a very attractive actress. She knows what she's doing. Like, like there's no complaints there from anyone. But this is hilarious. Like just this presentation, how trashy she looks. It's amazing, So Baby Billy wants to present this at Cousins Night. Baby Billy ends up showing up while they're trying to, at least attempt to bond with Chuck and Carl here. Baby Billy shows up with his son, who I believe, I forget what their son's name is, but that's his son. He's like, you're not going to exclude your cousin from this just because he's young. And his whole point, of course, is he wants to present this thing to them. But which he's already presented them. They've already said no. I forgot to mention that too. Earlier in the episode, he's already presented this. This is like the whole moment they present this whole thing to them. They're like, no, this is dumb as shit. We don't want to do it. And Baby Billy's like, all right, you'll come around. So come back to Cousins Night with his son. You're not going to exclude my son because he's young. Meanwhile, Aunt Tiff is already pregnant. This is also a great moment. Sorry, I got to backtrack because if you've been watching Righteous Gemstones, Trudy does not get along that well with Aunt Tiffany in the beginning. She's like, I want y'all to call me Aunt Tiffany. And she's like, fuck that. I'm calling her shit. Like, oh. And when they get rejected by the Gemstones in the scene, Aunt Tiffany's like, well, sorry. They're leaving. Aunt Tiffany's like, thank y'all so much for hearing us out. And Judy goes, love you, Aunt Tiff. And that was genuinely a really nice Judy moment where I was like, man, like, all right, like character development. Who doesn't love two characters not loving each other when they start out and then coming together? So, Cousins Night, we get the Baby Billy Bible bumpers, something like that. As he's presenting it, he obviously has the Montgomerys going, yeah, like Baby Billy's Bible boppers, bibbles. Oh, bonkers! Yes, the last image shows it. Baby Billy's Bible bonkers. Just let it roll around in your mouth there. Again, man, this is why we love Baby Billy for lines like "Let it roll around." Walton Goggins killing it. Just let it roll around in your mouth there, you know? So during Baby Billy's Bible Bunkers, you've got Jesse going up against Chuck, the older brother of the Montgomerys. And as you can imagine, Chuck knows his shit a little bit better than Jesse, man. And Jesse starts getting all swollen and out of shape. And as a result, there's some threatening going on, and they pull out the knives. Once again, we got Aunt Tiffany here, like ducking under the answer booth, man. Like the chick who plays hers. Let's give her a shout out here. I got her right here. Wow, okay, yeah. Valen Hall. All right. Valen Hall, you are awesome. You got a lot of comedic talent. You need to go places. You're way funnier than a lot of other people in Hollywood, honestly. You're way funnier than any of Joe Rogan's friends. That's for sure, Valen Hall. So during this knife fight, our boy Carl ends up choking on some food. There is a reference made earlier when he's like eating his food whole, like, oh God, it doesn't chew at all. And he starts choking on this food. He gets the Heimlich. all the gemstones and Chuck here help Carl all at once. They're like, oh, we got to do it all at once. He spits it out all over BJ's face. Pretty hilarious. Next to Amber Gemstone there. And you end up having, Carl getting saved. He's like, oh. And Chuck's like, man, that's why we're always telling you to chew your food whole. And once again, I mean, that's where I'll try to sell you on the Righteous Gemstones. It's some pretty good writing. It's very funny. I set it up earlier. This fat slob, he can't help it. He's always eating food whole. And then later, they bring it back around. He almost chokes to death. So, of course, these two are trying to kill each other. Carl almost chokes to death. And then, as a result, they all save him. You end up having the gemstones all come back out. And, oh, sorry, that's Indiana Jones. Yeah, the gemstones all come back out. They're like, hey, you know what? You guys are actually really cool. We like you. We love you. You're our cousins. Maybe we should hang out again some other time. And that's it, man. And it's a pretty great episode. I would say for sure. Again, even though it's got this long, crazy name, clothe thine others, unless thine clothe thine self, something like that. Cousins Night, man, very, very good episode of the Righteous Gemstones. Just all around great. You got Baby Billy, man, like killing it as always. Icon here, so we don't even need to bring that up. The Cousins, man, Chuck and Carl, this has definitely been their best episode. We got a lot of insight into them, a little bit of understanding. Oh, and to touch on just one last point, so I kind of left Eli alone here. Eli hears from the cousins, like, oh, well, you could stay here, I know, but excuse me. Why don't you go back with your mama and stay with her? And they're like, well, what are we going to stay with? In the broom closet she stays in the church. And again, man, like where this show just always kind of surprises me with its heart is Eli shows up at the church that his sister's at. She's like, it's got a caved in ceiling. It's dirty as shit. And he's like, how can I help you right now? And it's just cleaning up. And they're cleaning up together at the end of the episode. And it's just this very nice moment, of like, damn, man, this show has so much more heart than it almost deserves to have. So, yeah, like one episode of The Righteous Gemstones, much more well written, much more heartfelt, and much funnier than The Dial of Destiny. People in my audience did kind of laugh at like a couple of parts of it, but I'm not gonna lie, like overall, it was pretty silent. There was a lot of restlessness, and I think a lot of people kind of found themselves sort of like tired with it all, like I was, like I got beginning part, very exciting. Indiana Jones, young version, even though he looks like shit, doing his thing. We catch up with old Indiana Jones. There's one dumb song at the very beginning of his oldness that kind of brings you into it. And then he goes on this adventure where he gets chased by Nazis. Yeah, of course Nazis are bad. What are you, fucking Nazi? Yeah, they're fucking bad. As a result, finds the Dial of Destiny. Let's go back to that. And ends up going back in time, only for Brie Waller-Bridge to knock him out and him to get back with his wife. On the other hand, Righteous Gemstones, man, season 1, you had like murder, intrigue, cover up. Season 2, you had like scandal, responding to the scandal. Season 3 now, you have like handing over of power, exchange of power. My point is, man, there's always something going on with this show. And if it continues the way it's been continuing, I think Righteous Gemstones is going to be a really, really good time. If you have not watched Righteous Gemstones, dude, like go check it out. Like Baby Billy's Bible Bonkers right here All you need to see is Walter Goggins and his wife hiding. She's pregnant as fuck, by the way. Like, dude, her stomach's like coming out like fucking like 4 feet. She's super pregnant for Judy Jr. And there you go, man. You got young Chuck and Jesse, the two oldest, ready to fight each other over Bible knowledge, man. So I'm going to end it with this glorious image here. Once again, thank you very much for listening. Uh, take care of your people. Take care of yourself. If it wasn't already enough, let's go from shitty comedy club to ending with crappy 2010 early streamer. Let's go.